if we're allowing ourselves to connect with the body and seeing what's there, the next question is what capacity do we have to meet these experiences? Because it's like with these overwhelming experiences that can exist, if we just try and go for it and like do some sort of trauma processing forcefully, as can often happen in the field of trauma, and this is
Yeah.
why it's becoming more common that you're seeing in different treatment modalities of people talking about they're trauma informed. It just really means that they're being respectful and they understand how trauma happens, and that there is space being given to it rather than it's being treated as if it's a problem, because
Yeah.
that sets us up for failure in the beginning. But what we're practicing is connecting and building capacity to meet those experiences. And it's not that necessarily the experiences change, because like we're going to feel stuff because we have a body. It's just really what is our capacity to feel it? Like,
Yeah.
what is our capacity to feel pain? What is our capacity to feel sadness? What is our capacity to feel love? What is our capacity to feel grief? What is our capacity to feel anxious? You know, all of these are wonderful signals letting us know how we're interacting with our world and what that's pressing upon. The problem is, though, when we try to mentally understand it, we then often magnify its meaning rather than, this is something that I'm feeling, this is something that I'm learning to process.
Yeah, and this just brings up more and more into thinking of problems. And yeah, this can really create a downward spiral, or it can fortify this separation of I can cognitively understand and deal with it, but on a body level, on a level of the body, it's just happening still all the time. I just create the distance. And then it's just also a matter of time until the symptoms get back stronger and stronger, and then we are at the beginning.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
this is what I often see. Sometimes when people come to work with me, they really were able to psychological dissect it, but there
Yes,
was no regulation happening in the body. So they are
yes.
feeling still stuck.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that analyzing things and creating like a psychological framework about our feelings is still a symptom of separation. It's
Yeah,
like, I need to understand it in order to feel safe. And that is helpful for a little bit of like a self-permission piece to allow yourself to feel. And that could be part of the capacity building process of like self-awareness and noticing these things. But if we keep going with that, if that's the only way that we look at it, if it's just psychological, what we end up doing, like you mentioned, is create a bigger gap between the actual experience that is happening in the present moment that has been held from the past. So it's like
yeah,
past experience was not processed, so it just stays there. And then we go through life, we have more similar experiences because we gravitate toward that which is familiar, because change can be scary,
yeah,
natural part of being human. And then we build up more and more and more. We have more and more reference points, more and more evidence of, don't do this, you'll feel that. And when you feel that, it's overwhelming because it's like this, that, and the other thing. So why would I even want to feel it? So we create more and more separation. All of these experiences, trauma is a symptom of separation of a part of us.
yeah,
And so what we actually want to do to build safety is connection. And that can be a little scary. Like I'll share about a little trauma of mine. And this is just maybe something a little bit lighter, because the topic of trauma can get really heavy, and it is in some cases when it's been really big for people. And so I'd like to be sensitive to that. But just the process is kind of similar though. We're all building capacity toward things that we were overwhelmed to experience.
yeah,
So here's me. I was a little kid and I was walking home from school. And in Australia, we have lots of deadly animals. And I felt the presence of something under my foot, luckily. I looked down, it was a brown snake, one of the most venomous snakes in the world.
Yeah.
Now, the irony of this is, as an even younger kid, I was really interested in snakes and spiders. And when I had this encounter with the brown snake, there was a part of me that equated it to death because of what I knew about brown snakes. I'd learned all about how venomous they were, but I'd never encountered one in the wild. So I literally froze that moment. I was like, standing there on one foot, and then the snake went past. And I went through a bit of a process, and then I kind of got on with life. It
Oh, fuck.
didn't say anything and almost forgot about it until later on as an adult. I was walking just in a suburban street, saw a snake on the nature strip, and instantly this body memory kicked in. No time for thought. I jumped over the snake, over the median strip, into oncoming traffic.
Next trauma experience or what?
So at some level, it was safer to jump in front of traffic than to face a snake. Now, what I realized was, as I jumped over, fortunately, it was in a quiet street and it was, a fairly slow driving car. I moved out of the way. I walk back and I can now see the snake, and I walk, it hasn't moved through all of this. And I look down at the ground, and the snake has actually, it's dead.
Yeah.
Someone has killed it, like chopped its head off with a shovel. It's a common thing in Australia. So years later, that memory from that little kid was still there in my body as a boom, you could die.
Yeah.
It's a legitimate thing. Snake, like you can die from a snake bite.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
But the meaning that I made of it and how that was held in my body was snake equals death. And then all of the feelings of death are in my body. So there's a couple of ways that I could look at this. Like, first, I need to practice meeting, let's say, because I actually love nature, I love animals, and I really love snakes. It doesn't make any sense because I think they're incredible creatures, but there's still a part of me that, like, they're unpredictable to me. So
Yeah.
now every encounter that I have with a snake, I observe it. I want to get to know it now. And so as I'm doing that, there are certain feelings that are coming up in my body that I'm processing, and it's coming up and I'm aware of it, that is there. And I'm starting to create new meanings in this process of, okay, the snake is safe, right? There's a level of awareness that I need to have with it. Of course, like I don't need to be reckless about it and go and try and give it a hug, but I also no longer need to have that level of like catastrophizing about this past experience, overlaying it over my present, because I want to create a different present. And so
Yeah.
I need to learn how to create new connections, new associations with those past experiences and process them through the body. So it's just an example of what can happen and how we can look to process it, in just an example of the fear of death by a snake bite.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a perfect example for traumatic experiences in a really, really lightly and at the end a funny space. Yeah.
And so this is the same when we're working with all sorts of different nervous system regulation related traumatic experiences, chronic pains. All of them are like overwhelming experiences in the body. And what we're talking about is really a question of how do we connect with these experiences to develop safety in the way that they are processed, rather than us separating ourselves with them and then continuing to live a repeated ongoing experience of this traumatic experience.